morning. This is Introduction to Algebra, and we are looking at problem set 105. We worked on it yesterday, and we talked about doing powers with negative bases. And remember, if I say that you have a negative base of 5, and you're going to square that, the parentheses keeps that negative sign attached to the number. So this is negative 5 squared. So negative 5 times negative 5 equals a positive 25. However, if I write this, if I write this sign here, this negative is not inside a parentheses. So this means 3 squared, which is 9. The opposite of it means it is a negative 9. Okay? Now, let's look at some review problems. On your test, some of you did really well, and I'm very pleased with the test. For the most part, you've done very well on them this week, but I will try to get those grades back to you. I have the grades. I've gone through everybody that's taken the test, but I want to get it back to you so you know what you made. A few of you have already contacted. But I want to go through some very review type problems that I can help us make sure we all understand them, okay? So let's look at problem set 105. Let's go to number 4. The ratio of sycophants, by the way, a sycophant is somebody that they get close to somebody that has power or authority just to gain their favor. It doesn't mean they necessarily like them. It's just what they do, okay? The sycophants to bullies was 14 to 1, okay? If there were 750 in all, how many were sycophants? Well, we have a key word in that question. The key words are what? In all. That means I am going to make this comparison to a total. The total is 750. Now, what am I looking for? Go back to your question. It says, if there were 750 in all, how many were sycophants? Well, that I don't know. Now, in order to make the ratio that it is comparable to, I have to know how many sycophants. Go back to your problem. The ratio was 14 to 1. That means that this is a 14. But what is my total? Because this is a total, okay? So this is going to be 15. See how we said 14 plus 1 is 15? That gives us our total. Now what are we going to do? We're going to cross multiply. So we're going to say 15 times x and get 15x. Then we're going to say 14 times 750. I feel like sometimes you guys let me do all the work. So if you're going to take 750 times 14, multiply that out. Multiply it out. Please don't use your calculator. Please use your head. Okay, the answer was 10,500. Now what do we do? Well, it's very simple, isn't it? We'd simply divide by 15. This cancels out, giving us x. Now we say 10,500 divided by 15, and it goes into it 700 times. So the total number of sycophants was 700. Okay? If you have a question about how we did that problem, please make sure that you are either making a comment in the video or that you send me a text so that I can address it for you. It's the only way I can answer your questions, okay? Now, next, look at number 5. Lilliputians marched 500 meters in 4 hours. For the next 4 hours, they tripled their pace. What was the total distance they traveled in the 8 hours? Now, wait a minute. In 4 hours, how fast did they go? They did 500 meters. We know what they did on that one, that first 4 hours. Then it says, for the next 4 hours, they tripled their pace. So I'm going to triple the pace of 500. This is what they did the first 4 hours. This is what they did the second 4 hours. So here we have 500. here we have 3 times 500, which is 1,500. Then we're going to add those together. Now, the question is, what was our units? Go back to your story problem. The whole thing was done in meters. So the answer is 2,000 meters. Again, this is what they did in the first 4 hours. Then it says, oh, they tripled their distance or tripled their rate. So now they're going 3 times 500. What's the total distance they covered? We're going to add them together. All right? Let's try another problem. Let's do another review problem together. Okay? Let's look at number 6. Now, several of you have said, Mrs. Turner, I'm still struggling with these algebraic equations. This is a big deal because when you go to Algebra 1 next year, they are going to expect you to know how to do these basic equations, okay? So let's look at this and let's think about our key words. What does the word is mean? It means equals. So when you're reading the equation and you see the word is, that is where the equal mark is, okay? So let's look at this. 3 times a number is, ding, 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 there's my equal mark, 12 less than the product of a number and 5. Okay, let's put our equals mark up, okay? And let's look what comes before the equal mark, or before the word is. It says 3 times a number. Well, we know how to write that. That's 3n. So 3 times a number is 3 times n equals. Look at the next part. It says it is 12 less than. Wait a minute. When I say that something is 12 less than, that means less than means I have to subtract. What am I subtracting? I'm subtracting the 12 from something. So go out here, give yourself a little space and write minus 12. Because I'm going to subtract 12 from some number or some part of an equation. Go back to your book. Okay, is 12 less than, okay, here's what it's less than. The product of a number. Product means to multiply. So we're going to multiply a number, or n, and 5. We're going to multiply a number and n, or we're going to put 5n. Now, they want us to solve it. How do I solve that? Well, I'm going to bring the 5n over here. Okay, I'm going to do that by subtracting 5n from each side. When I do that, this equals giving us a minus 12. Over here, I have 3n minus 5n, so I have a negative 2n. What am I going to do? Divide by negative 2. This cancels, leaving n. Negative 12 divided by negative 2 equals a positive 6. Okay? Keywords. Words like is. That is where the equation, the equal marks is, and it divides your equation into 2 sections. That's what makes it possible for us to solve it. Then we put what's in front of the equal mark. Then we look what's after the is, breaking it down. Keywords. If I say a number is less than, I know that I'm subtracting that number from whatever is going to follow in the words. The words product means to multiply. Times means to add, to multiply. If I say it increases, I'm going to add. You have to think about those clue words that you learned in 3rd and 4th grade. Okay, let's look at the next one. It says, what number is 170% of 120? Now, I had several of you that missed this on the test the other day. And it is on this week's test, okay? So let's make sure we understand it, okay? So first, what is my percent pattern that I know? I know that percent over 100, right? Times the of equals the is. It's the exact same pattern as the fractions. The exact same pattern, except this is the percent over 100, and the fraction says fraction. It's the same pattern. Now look at your problem, okay? It says, what number is, so some number equals 170%, okay? What is 170%? Well, that's going to be 170 over the 100. Say, Mrs. Turner, but the numerator is larger than the denominator. Yes, because 100% is the whole thing. 170% is the whole thing plus almost 3/4 of another. Can you have 1 3/4 pizzas? Well, sure, okay? So it's the same kind of the same idea, okay? 170% of, okay, let's go back to our story problem. What number is 170% of, ding, ding, there's your clue, 120. Okay, we're gonna put 120. We'll put it over a 1 because it's the other parts in a fraction. It just makes our life a little easier, okay? Now, we're going to do what? Well, the first thing we can do is we can divide these two by zeros. Get rid of those two zeros, right? Now, I have another 0 in a denominator and a 0 in the numerator. I can get rid of that. Oh, now I have 17 times 12 and 1 times 1. Well, 1 times 1, we already know is 1. We already know that that's a 1. I hope that didn't blur out to you on you too bad. All right? Then we have 17 times 12. 17 times 12 is 204. There's my answer. Guys, when you do these problems on your test, okay, you know that a fraction times the of equals the is. The same is true of a percent. The percent over 100 times the of equals the is. That's all we've done right here, okay? Next, let's look at our next problem. If 80 is increased by 60%, what is the resulting number? Well, let's think. If I had a number and I wanted to increase it by a certain amount, I can add those, then find our number. Okay, let's read this again. If 80 is increased by 60%, let's go back to our pattern for a second. Our percent times the of equals the is, okay? Now, we know that we're going to increase, according to our story problem, we're going to increase it by 60%. Well, 80 is the whole number, right? Okay, so that's 100%. I want to increase that by 60%. So when I increase it, I take the whole number, which is 100%, increase it by what the problem says, which is 60%. So my new percent is 160%. Why? The 100 represents the original amount. 60% represents the amount I'm increasing it. I simply am going to add them together. Now, what's the of? 160% of what? Well, what do I want to increase? I want to increase 80. Since I'm going to increase the 80, I'm going to multiply it by 80. I'm going to put it over 1. Then I'm going to say, what can I reduce? And again, I'm going to get rid of those two zeros, a numerator and a denominator. Here I've got a numerator and a denominator that I can get rid of. Easy peasy now. All I need to do is multiply 16 times 8. And when I multiply the 16 times the 8, I'm going to get 8 times 6 is 48. 8 times 1 plus 4 is 12. So I have 128. All right? Let's look at one more problem if we can, real quickly. It says, number 9, what percent of 70 is 77? Now, I want us to go right back to our original pattern. Again, I had a couple of you miss this on our test last week. Okay, so here's our pattern. A percent over 100 times the of equals the is. Now let's look at our problem and figure out what we know. Do we know the percent? No, the question is what percent? So since we don't know the percent, we're going to put x over 100 because I don't know that answer, okay? But I'm going to multiply it by 70 over 1, or 70, because that's what my problem has, and I know that it equals 77. Okay? So if I multiply x over 100 times 70 equals 77. So I don't know what this is, so I'm just going to leave x equals, I have 77 over 70, okay? And I'm going to multiply that by 100. You say, why that, Mrs. Turner? Well, because I'm getting rid of this, okay? I'm going to get rid of all of that. So I have x equals 77 over 100 is times 100. So x equals 110%, okay? Because we're going to multiply this. We're going to multiply the 77 times 100, get 7,700, divide that by 70. We're going to end up with 110%. Now, I want you to look at your book. Look at number 11. I want you to try to do number 11 on a piece of paper. I'm going to give you the answer, but I want you to figure it out on your own, okay? Number 11, I'm looking for it here, is 15,120 cubic centimeters. I want you to solve that problem, and on your quiz, I'm going to ask you, were you able to do that? Okay? The answer is 15,120 square centimeters, not cubic, because it's looking for the surface area, okay, on number 11. That's what I want you to find, is the surface area. All right? Have a good day.